Good afternoon from beautiful Brisbane, Australia, and welcome to Healing from Complex PTSD. My name's Linda. I'm a complex trauma recovery coach and educator, and going around on the interwebs lately is lots of information about estranged parents. And a lot of that information is coming from very wounded and hurt places. And there are so many dynamics that come into play when it comes to adult children becoming estranged from their parents, or even parents choosing to estrange from their children, that no one social media post is going to cover the incredible agony that it is to go through this. Now, as keeping a very open platform as I do, I have been through this process. I went through this process long before it was even talked about. So the only information I had at the time was that if somebody continues to do what they're doing, and we address that with them, we do our best to speak with them, and they keep doing what they're doing because they don't go to seek help, whether that means they listened to you or they didn't, if they don't actually seek professional help in some way, shape, or form, seek further information even, like one of my parents has had the courage to read my work that's online, and being able to be vulnerable with me about what they experienced, which I didn't know. And we've had a relationship for decades that we both admit's been on and off, and they have been able to be vulnerable with me, but that's because I've been through and done my work and reached the stage where I could then begin to have contact with my family, knowing that I was able to remain who I am, not who the family dynamics insisted I had to be. Now, I want to explain to you in the briefest possible way that there is a process called differentiation. Okay? Now, I'll just use my dolls. You have to imagine for a moment. So this is you growing up. And as you grow up and you grow into an adult, when in the past, everyone in the family would just unconsciously follow through with all the family rules, all the family dysfunction, everything that went on behind closed doors remained behind closed doors, and nobody ever spoke about it. So even when one of the family members wasn't feeling, on top of the world about being part of the family, then, and that's a very, very brief way of saying that they're in a lot of pain and they never speak about it, the dynamics that are involved in that are huge. Now, my mum, who's passed away, did this. So all her life, she never told a soul that her mother hated her. Now, we have to remember in context here too that the minute somebody starts talking about a parent, people think the parent is the bee's knees. The challenge for us, though, is to sit back and say, this person is in pain. There has to have been something that's happened, okay? And we don't know. And we have to get used to being comfortable with not knowing other people's business unless they choose to share it with us, all right? It is none of our business unless somebody is that close to us, they share that with us, okay? There can be no judgment about things that we don't know anything about. So anyhow, my mum passed away from breast cancer, secondary liver. She was one of the eldest of three. Her next sister down passed away 10 years before her, breast cancer, secondary liver. Now, their youngest daughter, who moved to the other side of Australia, is still alive, got breast cancer got a lump at 50-ish, and has come through it, is still alive today. She moved to the other side of Australia because of what the family was like all those years ago, okay? Now, here's the challenge. We have been raised in this family environment, so therefore we're used to it, we perceive it as normal, except that what we're dealing with on the inside is anything but normal. So if you're an estranged parent watching this, please remember that you've never sat back and questioned what's normal, and even if your parents upset you, you've never taken it before them, you've never spoken about it, you've never had language for it, okay? It's never been okay for you to disagree with your family. It's never been something that you've ever had the power to change or thought that you could change, because that's how strong the dynamics are coming down intergenerationally. So that's why there's this gap. Now, back to the differentiation. So when we arrive in adulthood and we're not happy, like the things that have happened throughout our life have impacted us so deeply, and we don't know what to do because we've only ever operated under the family rules, okay? Now, these days, we're trying to have conversations with our parents and say, this is what's happening for me. You know, they are conversations that are being had in lots of different ways, shapes, and forms. Now, differentiation is something a child does in a family, healthy family, where the child, as it grows up, the adult steps back out of its life. So the child is no longer interdependent. So that when we're up to teenage years, we're interdependent. We're reliant on the adult in our life for just about everything. But meanwhile, the adult's teaching us how to take care of ourselves. Now, when your child gets to teenage years, the healthy way through is to start helping them think independently and think about their life, what it looks like going forward for them, and helping them grow into independence. Now, if we're an adult who never went through the differentiation process in the growing up years, then we will go through that process as we raise our children. Because as we raise our children, if we've been raising them with communication and we're a team, we're in this together, we're going to work it out no matter what, then you get to see the benefit of the fruits of what you're doing. And as this child grows, they differentiate from you and they know that they can come back to you if ever needed. Okay? But we're the parent and we have to be responsible in this process of stepping back and stepping back and stepping back. And when we do that, in order for us to do that, we have to have some pretty intense, strong, any other word you want to think of, self-reflection happening at the time, because otherwise we start demanding that kids do things our way. We start believing that there's something wrong with them because they won't do things our way. Just think of the times you may have said to you, well, I told you so. Or, well, if you'd just done it my way. Anything like that, okay? We've got to look at that and say, why? We've got to ask ourselves, why am I trying to control this? Can I not trust how I'm raising my child? Tell them, go out and explore, and I'll always be here. Okay, now that comes in many different formats. All right, so I want you to be very aware that my heart is with everybody, and this is a challenging process because it hasn't been done in a healthy way for many different years. So ultimately, what we want our family to look like is, yes, my adult child can come to me if they just want to talk, they need insight or anything. But it's always their choice if they come. I don't go and interfere in their life in any way, shape or form. I don't poke into their life. I don't offer opinions for the most part. I try not to. And if I do, I say I'll just let you know. But because we have a close relationship, I have 3 adult children, they understand that it's just an opinion. It's just information and they can use it however they want. So the goal is that both of us become independent of each other and interdependent. All right, so then it's healthy, there's flexibility, there's not my experience is the only experience in life. It gives them the choice. They actually do get a choice whether they choose to keep talking to us, whether they choose to remain loving us, to care about us, to be part of our life. That is their right as a human being, okay? As a parent, we in our hearts, no matter what, we always love our kids, unless there's something desperately wrong with us as a parent, as in internally, emotionally, things are very painful, okay, then we've got to get help. Then we know that we will always love our parents, okay? I walked away from my family for quite a number of reasons, but it comes down to one thing. The same thing kept happening over and over and over again, and it wasn't healthy. And I knew that if I kept going back into the family, it would be expected of me, non-verbally expected of me, that I choose to remain the same, fulfill my role in the family, whatever role that looked like in whatever part of my family, and that there would be no breathing space for me to change and grow. And at the time, I couldn't have said to you, oh, well, it's a differentiation process and I needed to grow to become independent of my family and to be able to be interdependent of my family. I mean, both lots of parents sets in my family are now getting on. But I have told them I will do what I can. It doesn't mean I'm at their beck and call, but I absolutely will do what I can. Now, my other set of parents that are still here too, I know it's confusing, there's lots of them, but don't stress. I see maybe once every 6 months because we go, we enjoy ourselves, and then we feel like we can go back. And that's how it is. It comes a time when there's a space where we grow and heal and recover. And it's important to remember on both sides, this is intergenerational. Okay, this doesn't just happen overnight. This is many generations that have arrived at this point to say what's been happening for generations is not healthy. Okay, I think one of the stories that used to go around many years ago online was of a wife who put the roast chicken into the pan, and every time she put the roast chicken into the pan, she would take the legs off and put the legs beside it. And her husband said to her, "Why do you take the legs off the chicken to roast it?" And she says, "I don't know. That's how it's always been done. Ask Mum." So he goes and asks the mother, and she says, and he asks the same question, and she says, "I don't know, that's how it's always been done." And so he goes to the grandmother, and he says, "Why do you take the legs off the roast chicken?" And the grandmother said, "Because back in the day, we didn't have a pan big enough, so we had to take the legs off the chicken." And that is how subtle all of the things that we're just going to go through now are in a family. They just get handed on with no one questioning them. The children that are choosing to walk away from their family for now, for forever, we don't know, are the ones that are saying what's being handed down is not healthy. It's not healthy for me, it's not healthy for the family, and we need to change what's happening. Because I didn't want my children to grow up in the same way I did. And I definitely wanted to have a healthy relationship with my children. So everything that we do is probably long-term planning emotionally in the family. Now, if you've never had any exposure to therapy of any kind, of this understanding of any kind, that's okay. Right? This is all new stuff in our arena. On my YouTube channel, there is a playlist by John Bradshaw on the family. It's called John Bradshaw on the Family. And there's a lot of information in there because it's based on family systems theory that you may find interesting to learn about as well. Okay? Now, one of the things we have to be aware of is control is part of a family's dynamics, and it can dictate how you feel, act, relate to others, leading to struggles with autonomy and self-expression in adulthood. When you think about it in your family, who is the one that always gets made a joke of? Who is the one that they roll the eyes at and go, oh, that's just them, because these people are being who they are and nobody's finding a level of acceptance about someone different in the family, embracing someone who's living a different life, okay? We want to look at perfectionism, strive for flawlessness, often resulting in excessive self-criticism and an inability to accept mistakes. So if you're running around being a perfectionist, which I admit I used to be, I've so much better not with it. Are you expecting everybody else to be as perfect as you're trying to be? Okay, these are the kind of things that we have to ask ourselves, and it's not looking outwardly, it's looking in here. If somebody doesn't do something as I expect, am I getting cranky, even though I don't show it, because in our family we've been taught we don't show this? Am I still getting really upset that they couldn't do this way? Okay. Now, sometimes when we do need people to do things a certain way, but not everything all day, all the time, not the same thing over and over again, we've got to look at what is happening outside of us, what is happening internally, okay? There's a lot of blame that goes on in families. There's a lot of fault finding. There's a cycle of guilt, shame, and resentment in adulthood. There's a lot of denial, okay? There's a lot of suppressing true feelings, thoughts, desires, creativity, self-expression. All of that gets hindered, shoved down, denied. And that's what we really want to be. We want to be able to be who we are and be part of our families. Nobody ever wants to walk away from their family. We will try many different things before we realise that we're left with no choice, okay? There's avoidance where people don't communicate openly and honestly, okay? Because that's what we've grown up with. Oh, we don't talk about that. But it's a real non-verbal message of we don't talk about that. It's very hard. Avoidance and avoiding our emotions is one of the big things that we're raised in for generations, okay? We need to be teaching our children to talk about their emotions, to first of all label them and sit with them and listen to them, understand them, and if we can't, we're having a conversation about how can we understand this better. There's a lot of gaslighting that goes on in families, okay? I think we're all aware of what the gaslighting is, and oftentimes how we feel and what we want, what we need in our families is often ignored, okay? One of the things that I did do, and I didn't do everything right raising my kids, it's a challenge. But one of the things I did do was sit back and learn who they were as individuals, okay? It's important that we're able to see their differences, their different strengths, their different needs. One of the things that was really obvious my eldest son, he ate slushy food from 9 weeks of age. And then my daughter, who came next, ate barely a thing. So it's like, you might think that's simple, but I grew up in a family where everyone sat at the table, everyone ate everything on their plate, and no correspondence will be entered into. If you don't eat everything on your plate, there's no dessert. Now we go, well, what's wrong with that? Well, nothing, because that was our normal. But then when you have 3 children who are very different, then you learn to honour and respect what each of those different needs are. A lot of the time we've been taught to ignore what's on X, Y, and Z and what's happening in the family. It comes along as what happens behind closed doors, stays behind closed doors, and then we pretend in public to be something else again, okay? And there's a lot of distrust that comes about from all of this as well. And that distrust makes it hard to form and keep relationships. I know and understand how this is a lot. If there was one thing I wish I could have done differently with my parents before I had to go off and, work out all of my own stuff, so I wish I could have sat down with them and said, look, due to everything that's happened, I do need to take time out from the family, and if we're to have a healthy relationship going forward, I need for you to consider getting help in this area. At the time, there was no way I even had language to say that or to understand what was going on, really. I just knew that I couldn't do the drama on repeat and expect to come out of it sane. Okay? If your children have become estranged, then we're going to do some more videos on this and what to do about it. And if you've had to estrange from your parents, then we're going to do some more videos on that too. Ultimately, your goal is to be able to have connection where it feels safe and you feel whole and you know how to keep your boundaries at every level in place for you. Okay? So one of my recent visits, a comment was made about somebody from the past who was also excommunicated from the family. And all of us just sat there. The person who said it, they are bitter. They are, a lot of things that come with bitterness. And all of us just sat there and nobody said anything. We didn't want to engage with that type of behaviour anymore. And nothing was said. We just moved the conversation on. And it wasn't ignoring, it was simply like, that's really bad behaviour for an adult to be sitting there saying something really awful about somebody they chose not to have anything to do with many years ago. So we want to get to a stage where we feel the depth of love that exists within us all, no matter what the case. And we want to know that in that space of love, there is hope, and we don't know what the future holds. To hold on to your own anger and bitterness and everything that comes with it will make you unwell. Okay? It doesn't lead to a healthy life. For now, take this list. Excuse me. I want you to be able to look at it, do some self-reflection, and see if you can relate to that in what happened for you in your upbringing, whether you're an estranged parent or an estranged adult. What happened for you that has disrupted the flow in your own self and your ability to love? Because in doing that, then you're going to have the answer for the one next step of what you need to build into your life so that you can begin to be free of everything that's been handed down for many, many, many generations. My heart goes out to you all. For those that are ready, the Thriver Library, resource library link will be down below, because it has the workbooks in it, the courses in it that we need to be able to look at what's happening inside of us and recognise the trauma responses, recognise the patterns in our family, and begin to heal as well. Thank you everybody for joining in and for all the beautiful comments I've had. I've tried to keep up, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.